What's going on, everybody? Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you're excited because we are 100 days away. That's right, 100, the 100 emoji. We are 100 days away from the Dallas Cowboys beginning their 2021 season. Obviously, they will visit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday, September 9th, the kickoff game for the 2021 NFL season. The Buccaneers will raise a banner. They'll celebrate winning the World Championship. They'll have the Lombardi Trophy there. And the Dallas Cowboys, of course, will play the first game that begins their latest campaign that will, of course, end with the Lombardi Trophy. This is the year, right? This is definitely happening. The Dallas Cowboys are winning their 6th Lombardi Trophy in 2021. I promise you, seriously, I hope it happens, but we'll see. Obviously, a lot has to happen between now and then for us to figure out whether I am right in my prophetic statement or not. And obviously, with the season getting close, because again, it's 100 days away. Tomorrow, say goodbye to triple digits. Tomorrow, we're 99 days away, and for a really long time, we're in the double-digit land, and that's a good thing because not only are we 100 days away, but we're in the month of June, and the month of June is really the last one where there isn't any NFL action of note. Yes, there are OTAs, fine, but July is what brings with it training camp. That's technically at the end of the month, so we have a little bit of a dry spell to go through in the month of July, and that's fine. But ultimately, next month is when things get started. Next month is when the Cowboys, ideally, it isn't official yet, will be headed to Oxnard, California for training camp. It'll be Mike McCarthy's first time there, obviously. Didn't get to go to Oxnard last year. And so in the spirit of Mike McCarthy, in the spirit of being 100 days away, we have some things that we've been pondering, some things that we're wondering about, some questions, I guess is the best way to put it, that we have when it comes to the 2021 Dallas Cowboys and whether or not they can win the Super Bowl this year. Things that we kind of have to have the answer to, or that rather that we will need to have the answer to throughout the season if this team is ultimately going to have the parade that Dak Prescott said when he signed his big-time contract with the team. Now, speaking of Dak Prescott, he, of course, gets our, topics off and underway. Dak Prescott is obviously the biggest question mark when it comes to the 2021 Dallas Cowboys. How will he play? Who will he be? What Dak Prescott are we going to get? And it's a fair question to ask because he is coming off of a devastating injury from a long time ago. We haven't seen Dak Prescott play football since October. Yes, we saw him at OTAs. Very exciting stuff. But Dak Prescott is the straw that stirs the drink. Yes, shout out to you, Stephen Jones. And obviously, this offense that we all expect to be among the best in the NFL is going to go as far as Dak Prescott takes them. Is he going to play like the top 5 quarterback that we all know and believe that he is? It makes a lot of sense, but it is fair to wonder whether or not that is the guy that is going to show up in 2021 after so much time away with all of the pressure. Not that pressure's ever been something that has affected Dak. If anything, pressure has exacerbated how great he is and brought out his greatness, but it's a fair question to ask nonetheless. And in order to kind of figure out who Dak's going to be in 2021, we kind of have to revisit who he was last season. Now, I maintain that this wasn't sustainable, but any Cowboys fan you talk to loves to say how Dak Prescott was going to throw for 6,000 yards last season, 59 million touchdowns. Dak Prescott didn't even play 5 complete games last year, but had 9 touchdowns, almost 1,900 passing yards. He was averaging almost 400 yards passing a game. That is absurd. A 68% completion percentage, among the very best in the National Football League. Only 4 interceptions. Obviously, interceptions are a fluky thing sometimes. A 99.6 quarterback rating. And again, not even 5 games played as he was injured in the second half against the New York Giants in Week 5 back in October, like we talked about. Now, is this sustainable? No, it's not. This was not going to happen, all right? And I am among the biggest Dak Prescott fans, supporters, truthers that you will find. QB1. I mean, pay the man. I'm so happy they did, but pay him again. I've been singing that the Cowboys should have paid Dak a long, long, long time ago. So please don't misconstrue the fact that I'm saying what he was doing last year as not being sustainable as some sort of doubt in who he is as a quarterback. I believe in Dak Prescott. However, this was not going to happen. And maybe it would have happened a couple more times because the Cowboys defense was so bad, but we don't want this type of performance from Dak Prescott, right? Like, it's fun, and it would be awesome if Dak Prescott led the league in passing or set some sort of record for passing touchdowns or something like that, but it isn't necessarily necessary, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, the Cowboys were in games that you don't want to be in, all right? You don't want to play the kind of football that the 2020 Cowboys had to play with Dak Prescott. That is, generally speaking, losing football and the type of games that are not going to go your way. I mean, Dak Prescott played out of his mind, and even in the game that they won that he got hurt in, the team was 2-3. Now, that's more emblematic, obviously, of the Cowboys overall, the defense being so bad, the personnel decisions that they made on that side of the ball not panning out. You can't expect Dak Prescott to go play defense as well, but what you need is a defense that helps him, and obviously that can sustain what he is doing when they're on the field. And so to answer the question, who is Dak going to be in 2021? I don't think he's going to be this guy. If you are a fantasy football fan, I mean, certainly draft Dak Prescott. I'm not saying that he's going to be garbage. He's going to be among the better quarterbacks in the National Football League. I just don't think he's going to be lighting things up at this ridiculous rate because this isn't sustainable for anybody, and that's okay. I think Dak Prescott is going to be the quarterback that the Cowboys need. And sometimes that quarterback needs to throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns to win the game. Sometimes that quarterback needs to do some different things. I thought one of the more interesting things that Dak Prescott has said this offseason was when he had his press conference announcing his new contract with the team. He talked about being a little bit more wise. Obviously, the play that he was injured on was him running out of the pocket, trying to make a first down on his own. And he talked about how the Cowboys now have a vested interest in him, a vested financial interest in him. So he has to be a little bit more cautious in that sense. And so I ultimately think Dak Prescott is not necessarily going to err on the side of caution, but I do think that he is going to be what the Cowboys need from the all-important quarterback position. Now, the good thing is if your quarterback is being what the team needs, that's the best possible quarterback that you can possibly have. I would love to see Dak Prescott light up box scores, light up stat sheets, light up the scoreboard in general. I just don't think that's going to happen, but I do believe, in fact, I know deep in my bones that Dak Prescott is going to be the dude. If he has been a single thing for the Dallas Cowboys since taking over now 5 years ago, it has been the answer. What do the Cowboys need? What do we need in this moment? What do we need in this quarter? What do we need on this drive? Dak Prescott has found a way to answer all of those questions, all of those concerns, which is why I certainly believe in Dak Prescott in 2021. And if this is right, if that's taken care of right, like if the Dak Prescott thing is what we expect it to be in 2021, then there really isn't a whole lot else to worry about. But there still are other questions that we have about this team in 2021 that are going to affect, obviously, how good they are this season. Number 2, Mike McCarthy. Can we rely on him? All right, now, there are some takes about Mike McCarthy that are floating around the internet, some on twitter.com, some on proverbial podcasts. In fact, I do a podcast every week on our network. The Blogging the Boys podcast network is available on all major podcast platforms. We have a different show that comes out every day, so you get different hosts, yada, yada, yada. But I do a show every Wednesday called the NFC East Mixtape. It's myself and my cohort from Bleeding Green Nation, SB Nation's Philadelphia Eagles website, Brandon Lee Gouton, and BLG and I, every week, I promise you, every week we're here to talk about the state of the NFC East, hence the name, the NFC East Mixtape. Yeah, we're really putting our brains to work here. But BLG is a big-time doubter in Mike McCarthy. In fact, BLG has a bit of a way that he puts this where he says, if you could calculate the value that a head coach brings to a football team, and you could calculate the value that a quarterback brings to a football team, he believes that the value associated with Ron Rivera and Ryan Fitzpatrick in Washington would be greater than the value associated with Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. Now, he completely believes in Dak Prescott as being the best quarterback in the division. He simply believes that Mike McCarthy is weighing down Dak Prescott that much in this particular capacity. I say baloney. That's silly. That's ridiculous. Maybe Ron Rivera is a better head coach than Mike McCarthy, and that is a very strong maybe. But at the absolute worst, they are a push. And so there's no question that Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy are the better tandem. But, you know, these types of takes exist, right? Like there are a lot of people who think that the Cowboys have some sort of just dude running as their head coach. And here's something that I think we need to consider. And I promise you, I'm not trying to go to bat for McCarthy. I'm not trying to cape for McCarthy. I'm not trying to tell you some sort of lie. I'm not trying to fool you and pull one over on you because I know I can't. I know you're a genius. I know you are the smartest person among your entire group of friends and family. How do I know you're a smart person? Because you're here. You're watching us on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. That's what true geniuses do. But the thing about the Mike McCarthy situation is everybody looks at last season. Yes, the Cowboys went 6-10. What a loser. Oh my gosh, he came all the way back to go 6-10. Look at the Packers, blah, blah, blah. Forget about the Packers. It's a whole different situation. By the way, it's almost as if the Packers problem wasn't necessarily just a Mike McCarthy problem, but I digress. Talking about the 6-10 record, the Cowboys, as we just discussed, lost the best player on their team before week 5 even ended. They lost the best player on their team and still won 4 games. The Cowboys, without Dak Prescott, won 4 games. That's as many games as the Philadelphia Eagles won all season with Carson Wentz on their roster for the duration of it. By the way, they benched him. Now, we'll get to the Eagles in a little bit. We'll get to Washington and New York as well. But my point is, Mike McCarthy, as we all know, had the McCarthy project, did a lot of PR to get himself back in the NFL, and I think that set him up for all these arrows to be slung at him, right? That's just the way things go. Now, if we look at this objectively, Mike McCarthy spent the entire 2019 season at home, in the barn, in the project, the McCarthy project, yada, 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 all right? He spent the entire 2019 season planning his return to the NFL. What's the longest you've ever spent planning something? All right, because speaking for like myself, if I make a dinner reservation and my wife and I go out and it doesn't go according to plan, I freak out because I called. I made the reservation. The table's supposed to be here. What's going on? There's a wait now. Why did I make the reservation? That's the worst, right? Like, why do they make you make reservations if the table isn't going to be ready? So I freak out over that. Mike McCarthy spent a whole year, an entire year, devoting himself to returning to the NFL, triumphantly so, and going, obviously through teams and different situations and handpicking the one that he thought he could prosper the most in. It just so happened the Cowboys' job was available because Jason Garrett didn't get the ball across the goal line. Not like we had a whole decade to figure that out, but Mike McCarthy joined the Cowboys, said, all right, cool. Let's party. Let's rock and roll. This whole past year, man, I was studying. I was figuring things out. I was looking at trends. I was looking at baselines, and now I am ready to roll. Vamonos. Boom. The whole world changed. Everything that Mike McCarthy planned for went out the window, and he had to adjust on the fly, obviously in the middle of the pandemic, as we all did. Beyond that, within that, Mike McCarthy said, all right, man, this is crazy. We're trying to figure this out. It's a whole new world. Shout out to Aladdin, the magic carpet ride and everything. Let's do this. All right, let's get to where we got to get to. We've gotten now to week 5 against the New York Giants. We're struggling. Our defense is really bad. Obviously, some of those decisions were Mike McCarthy's fault in hiring Mike Nolan and whatnot. So I'm not saying he's blameless or a victim here, but all right, I have tried everything I can to put together this duct tape, twig, glue plan. Oh, goodness gracious, Dak Prescott's gone. I mean, the man really, if there has ever been a coach who did not have a fair shake just because of reality in his first season with a club, it's Mike McCarthy. And again, I'm not saying this to try to tell you, you know what, dude, Mike McCarthy's so awesome. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is if you're using the 2020 season to objectively say that Mike McCarthy is not good enough for the Dallas Cowboys, you aren't being fair. You aren't being rational. You're being ridiculous, actually, because last season was so wonky. And look, I like to point out fun coincidences sometimes and, different things that happen to line up in NFL history. But if we look at Mike McCarthy, because this was always something that was going to take time. We all knew, we all believed at least that the Cowboys had a lot of talent to work with on their roster. We all thought highly of their draft class last year. We were all wrong in thinking Dontari Poe and Gerald McCoy would work out. Obviously, they didn't work out for very different reasons. But we also knew that there were some issues, and those issues came to light when all the stuff was happening. Obviously, there were some locker room tensions, and a lot of that isn't necessarily Mike McCarthy's fault. A lot of that is the fault of just the organization and there not being accountability and whatnot. And so Mike McCarthy had a job to do that was going to take longer than a year. All right. Now, that we all thought the Cowboys would compete again, but Dak Prescott getting hurt changed that. But when we look at Mike McCarthy, again, it's just a coincidence. There's no need to necessarily read too much into this, but his second year in his last place worked out pretty well. That's right. I'm talking about the 2007 Green Bay Packers. In 2006, which was Mike McCarthy's first season with the G-Men, I guess technically the G-Men, but the G-Men are the Giants. Whole different, debate we can have there. Anyway, the Green Bay Packers went 8-8, and you'll recall that they played their Week 17 game against the Chicago Bears, and Brett Favre contemplated retirement. What am I going to do? Am I going to hang him up? And not going to hang him up? Do I want to play? Do I not want to play? Decided to play. Came back 2007. The Green Bay Packers were awesome. They were the number 2 seed in the NFC, second only to the Dallas Cowboys, who broke our hearts when they lost to the aforementioned G-Men, the New York Giants, in the divisional round. We talked about the 2007 Giants with Shereen Williams when we discussed the greatest Dallas Cowboys team of all time. Go check that out back in our feed. But getting back to the subject at hand here, the 2007 Green Bay Packers were awesome. They improved from 8-8 to 13-3 in just Mike McCarthy's second year. Now, is that some of that? The fact that they had an all-time quarterback and Brett Favre roaming their sidelines and commanding their huddle and throwing all these passes and interceptions, by the way? Yes, but it's also Mike McCarthy's philosophies taking place, taking root, starting to reap some benefits. And so I'm not saying that the 2021 Dallas Cowboys are going 13-3 because A, that's impossible. There are now 17 games in an NFL season, but it makes sense. It makes rational and objective sense that Mike McCarthy's team would be better in their second season after he's had an opportunity to put all of his things, all of his ways into place, and obviously with a full and healthy Dak Prescott. But for the last time, saying it here, all right, last time Mike McCarthy entered his second season with a team and had a quarterback who wore number 4, that team hosted the NFC Championship game. These are just facts. These are just facts, all right? Like, I'm just pointing out facts. That's all I'm doing here. But so how much can we rely on Mike McCarthy? If that's the question, I think a reasonable amount. I think that we really, truly don't know the answer to that. And that's not a bad thing. This is truly a year to learn that, to understand that, to establish that. I mean, Mike McCarthy's team did a fair job of rebounding from adversity or to adversity last year. And so it will be interesting to see if they are truly capable of doing that in 2021. If they are not, maybe changes could happen. I sincerely doubt it personally, but I expect that things will be okay on the Mike McCarthy front in 2021. Now, there are obviously other questions on the coaching staff besides Mike McCarthy, and I mentioned he hired Mike Nolan. Like, we all can acknowledge that Mike Nolan was not a great decision, but it's a decision that Mike McCarthy made. But Mike McCarthy said, you know what? I'll make amends. I'll say goodbye to Mike Nolan, and I'll bring in Dan Quinn. All right, this is a big-time deal, man, because we all believe, as mentioned, that the Cowboys' offense is going to be fine, that the Cowboys' offense is going to be among the best in the NFL, that the Cowboys' offense is going to be able to carry them, that the Cowboys are going to win a lot of games because their offense is very good. The problem is that even when you have a very good offense, as evidenced by the 2020 Dallas Cowboys, if your defense is basura, you can't do much. So will Dan Quinn make a difference? Man, I hope so. But I find it hard to believe that he won't, because here's the thing. When things are really, really, really bad in the NFL, and this isn't even a Dan Quinn thing, all right, but when a team is really, really, really bad at something, and I'm talking anything, like if their offensive line is the worst in the NFL, if they're among the worst in the NFL at turnovers, if they're among the worst in the NFL at causing turnovers, if they're among the worst in the NFL at winning coin tosses, right? If a team is bad at anything, like insanely, disgustingly bad at one particular thing, generally the year after that, there's some sort of regression, just regression to the mean, right? Because that's life. Like, that's the law of averages. I mean, you are generally going to regress back to normal because you're not always going to be at the polar opposite extreme end, right? So things should be better under Dan Quinn just because he is not Mike Nolan, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, he should be better just by simply not being Mike Nolan. But you've heard it several times. We've talked about it ourselves. Dan Quinn, also kind of a ballin' defensive coordinator, all right? Now, the last time he was a defensive coordinator, as we all know, was in Seattle. They went to the Super Bowl both of those years. In 2013, they won it. In 2014, of course, lost it. We all believe, by the way, that those 2014 Seahawks would have lost the NFC Championship game if the Cowboys had managed to get there. It hurts. I know. Shout out to Mike McCarthy, who was the reason that they did not. Not that I am bitter or anything, but Dan Quinn, his first year in Atlanta, really didn't, make a whole lot of noise. They did beat the Cowboys in 2015, although that did happen against Brandon Whedon, not Tony Romo, so not necessarily sure we can count that. But the point is that Dan Quinn, as a defensive coordinator, is a really, really, really respected person in the NFL, and that's an exciting thing. Do we believe in Dan Quinn as a head coach? It doesn't matter, because he's not the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and Dan Quinn is somebody who is going to revert this defense back to a scheme that they knew that they operated more heavily in 2018 when they had a lot of success. Things got weird last year. There's no denying it. Things got weird, and things were very weird in the Mike Nolan sense. But Dan Quinn reverting things with, the reason that things were so great in 2018 for the Dallas Cowboys was what? Shout it out. Shout it out loud. Yes, I know Kiss sings the song. Thank you for telling me 5,000 times. What was the reason that the Cowboys defense was great in 2018? Yes, you're right. It was the linebacker play. The Cowboys had stellar, tremendous play out of their linebackers in 2018. Shout out, of course, to rookie Leighton Vander Esch and to 2018 Jalen Smith. And you know what? Cowboys have some better linebackers now. Are they Jalen Smith, number 9, and Leighton Vander Esch? No, but the Cowboys have Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox. all of a sudden, just like 2018, the Cowboys have these versatile, fast, athletic linebackers. What a nice life they're living here, all right? So my point overall is that Dan Quinn has the arsenal necessary to piece together a solid enough defense to compete given the offense that the Cowboys have, and he no longer has the roles and responsibilities that are associated with being a head coach. Like, theoretically, this should all line up. A Kobayashi Maru, as we all know, is the classic unwinnable situation in Star Trek. This is kind of the opposite of a Kobayashi Maru. This is a situation where, like, all signs point to this having success. And I don't mean success like this is going to be the top defense in the NFL. I point to this being a regression to the mean, maybe a little bit further than that, maybe a top 12. We would totally, if this was a top 12 or 13 defense, we'd throw a party. We'd be pumped here on the YouTube channel. All right. We would go wild that this was a top 12 or top 13 defense. And it makes sense. All of the evidence besides Dan Quinn points to that. But the fact that Dan Quinn is good at this specifically certainly suggests that this could, nay, should happen to the Dallas Cowboys in 2021. So, all right, next question. What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? By the way, if you have any questions that you want us to discuss, leave them in the comments. All right, we work for you. If you want us to talk about anything, and I mean anything, let us know in the comments. I can promise you that we will get to it. But I know what you were thinking, all right? I know that you're thinking, man, RJ, a big thing. It's just I've been thinking about this. A big reason that the Cowboys could, should, maybe probably will have success in the NFC East is because the NFC East sucks. Yeah, I know. Will the NFC East be competitive? All right. I don't know. I really don't know. But I can tell you what, the NFC East was awful last year. How awful was the NFC East in 2021? Or excuse me, 2020? Obviously, it's going to be awful in 2021. I'm forecasting that into the future. I'm putting it out into the ether so that it will happen. But consider this. We know that the NFC East was won with a sub 500 record, right? We know that. You know that. You're a genius. Like I said, been there, done that. All right. I want you to look at the 2000. I mean, you're not going to look. I'm just going to tell you, like, look with your ears at the 2020 Washington football team. Now, everybody makes a big deal. I talked about my friend BLG thinking that Ron Rivera is really great, and I'm not trying to hate on Ron Rivera. All right. But the 2020 Washington football team won 7 games. All right. They were the winners of one of the worst divisions of all time, with 7 wins. They were 7-9. All right. 7-9 was good enough to get all this hype in the offseason. All right. All this hype, all this pomp and circumstance over a team that won 7 games. Do you know how many of those 7 wins came against the NFC East? All right. Because we're talking about a team that is apparently the best of the worst, right? Like, that's the thing here. The 2020 Washington football team won 7 games. All right. 7. Shout out to Monica Geller. The Friends Reunion was awesome. All right. They won 7 games. 4 of them were wins against the NFC East. So this team was so bad. I mean, so unbelievably bad that they only won 3 real games, because we're all willing to concede that the NFC East games are not real. Like, they might not even be actually real. They might just be fake. They might happen in some alternative universe. All right. They won 4 games. They stood on the shoulders of the worst, literally one of the worst divisions in NFL history, just to get to 7 wins. All right. Like, that's unbelievable when you think about it. And people are over here talking about how they're this great team that is going to be awesome in 2021. How? Why? Because of Ryan Fitzpatrick? I mean, is he better than Alex Smith was last year? Yeah, probably. But so, I mean, like, what is there to get ridiculously excited about here? We're talking about a team that won 3 games that were not against the worst division of all time. And you know what? You know how bad this team was? They didn't even win a single game against the Giants. All right, this Washington football team that everybody thinks was so good in 2020 got swept by the New York Giants. Think about that. Like, of the 4 NFC East games they won, obviously they swept the Cowboys and they swept the Philadelphia Eagles, but the 2 games they beat the Cowboys in were seriously nothing impressive, right? They beat Andy Dalton the first time, and they literally knocked him out of the game. John Bostic, super dirty move. I mean, not that the Cowboys were going to win that game, but still. And then they beat Andy Dalton on Thanksgiving. Fine. Again, like, the 4 NFC East wins are already extremely hollow. But then you consider the quality of the team, and it's not like they even beat Dak Prescott, and they got swept by the Giants. Like, moving on to the Giants were pissed off because they didn't get the opportunity to win the division with a 6-10 record. Of their 6 wins, do you know how many wins the Giants had against the NFC East? They had 4 wins. 2/3 of their wins last season were against what is arguably the worst division in the history of professional football, a league that celebrates 102 years of existence this year. All right, that's nuts when you think about this. And to be fair to the Giants, they suffered a lot of injury issues themselves. I mean, lots of new things. First-time head coach and Joe Judge, new blazing offensive coordinator in Jason Garrett, blazing offense, obviously. But they lost Saquon Barkley early on, and that, that's a thing. Like we talk about that for the Cowboys, and that's a thing. I mean, but the Giants are kind of that team that's putting all their eggs in the running back basket, and that's fine. That truly is the Jason Garrett way. If Jason Garrett were a Mandalorian, that would be his way. But yeah, I mean, excuse me for not being intimidated by the New York Giants. And finally, the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, first of all, Doug Peterson gone. Awesome. Great news. Awesome head coach. We'll see where he's coaching next year. But new head coach Nick Sirianni playing, Rochambeau, whatever it is, tic-tac-toe with his draft prospects. The Philadelphia Eagles went 4-11-1 last year. All right. Of their 4 wins, do you know how many came within the NFC East? 2. Half of their wins were against this low quality division. And of their 2 wins in the NFC East, 1 was against a rookie 7th-round draft pick who had to make an emergency start for the Dallas Cowboys and Ben DiNucci. It is comical how bad this division is. It is actually hilarious, is really what it is. It's hilarious that this division was so bad in 2020. And honestly, who got better? Like, of all those teams, maybe the Giants got better. Honestly, maybe the Giants secondary is really going to be among the better ones in the NFL, but their offense is going to hold them back. Daniel Jones turns the ball over at a ridiculous rate. And so, fine, have a nice defense. You're just going to be Washington. That's all you're going to be. You're going to have a nice defense with a really bad offense that might have a couple of games that make you feel good. So will the NFC East be competitive? No, no, it won't be. So am I saying the Cowboys are just going to easy peasy sweep this bad boy? No, but the Cowboys should at the very least win 4 games within this crummy division, which puts them in position to win 10, 11 games overall, which gets them into the playoffs, which is obviously something that we all want to see. So shout out to the NFC East. We, of course, love you all. Last thing that we're going to get into today, I had a great time with that. Which new Cowboys will step up? Because that's the thing, right? Like, we're all talking about Dak Prescott. We haven't necessarily named any other names, but Amari Cooper is going to be great. CeeDee Lamb's going to really break out this year. I think we all believe with a full season's worth of Dak Prescott. We expect Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins to play well. Lots of offensive players. Blake Jarwin coming back, obviously. Defensively, DeMarcus Lawrence is going to continue to be the war daddy that Jerry Jones knows and loves. But who is new? Who is the new blood that is going to step up, for Dan Quinn, right? Like, who's going to be the new guys that really kind of take this thing over the edge for the Cowboys in 2021? And I think they all come on the defensive side of the ball. Like, maybe you could say Tyler Biadasz as a new face, although he's not new. Maybe like a glow up type thing, because he's like the established starter, I guess. That, so it doesn't really make sense. But either way, I think all the new players that are going to make an impact for the Cowboys are going to be on the defensive side of the ball. In terms of free agent additions, Keanu Neal. I mean, I think we're all super excited to see this dude hit somebody. Really, really, really excited to see him bring his safety level play, obviously full-time to the linebacker position. Pumped about that. Similarly, Damontae KZ. I mean, am I really, really, really excited about this? No, but he gives the Cowboys some sense of stability at safety, which is something that they have sorely lacked for a long time. So I'm very excited about that. In terms of draft picks, we talked about linebackers already. Micah Parsons figures to be a big part of what the Cowboys are going to do defensively. You got to imagine Jabril Cox is going to get in on that mix. I think if you're talking about those 4 players right there, and let's throw in Kelvin Joseph, right? So that gives you 5 new players on defense to add legitimate impacts. Yes, other players will have moments that are notable and whatever, but we're talking those 5 players: Keanu Neal, Damontae KZ, Micah Parsons, Jabril Cox, and Kelvin Joseph. making impacts every single week. That elevates this defense. I mean, that elevates this defense, and that's a rising tide that lifts all boats. That helps, obviously, Dan Quinn. That helps Mike McCarthy. That helps the offense. That helps Kellen Moore. That helps Dak Prescott. That helps you and me. I mean, it makes everybody happy. And who doesn't want to be happy? All right? Like, who hates happiness, honestly? But, so yeah, I think that those are the guys. And this isn't a new face. I wrote about this recently at bloggingtheboys.com. But I tell you what, I'm pretty pumped about Greg Zuerlein, because Greg Zuerlein was uncharacteristically bad from beyond the arc last season, from 50 yards more in terms of field goal attempts. Uncharacteristically bad for his career. He was 3 of 9 from downtown. Greg Zuerlein was in 2021 or 2020. And so do I think he'll attempt that many field goals from the 3-point line? No, I don't. But, I mean, I don't think he'll attempt that many 50-yarders. I think this offense is going to be better at converting different opportunities. And we all know how much the Cowboys love to play a one-possession game. So I think Greg Zuerlein, that's the thing. I think there's a lot of other guys that will make more notable impacts in 2021 that they did in their first year with the team. Greg Zuerlein, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Biadasz we talked about. I mean, there are a lot of people who are going to have an opportunity to really shine, but just didn't last year because everything got off the rails so fast, so quickly, so devastatingly, and it was what it was. But I can tell you that it is what it is, and this is a whole lot of fun. I have had such a blast sitting here with you talking about the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, the best thing in the world. I mean, seriously, the fact that you and I get to talk about the Dallas Cowboys like this, how lucky are we? So once again, if you have anything that you want us to talk about, any Cowboys related things, any whatever, if you want us to hit it, if you want us to discuss it, if you want us to analyze it, let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, type in stuff and whatever, make sure to subscribe right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We work very hard to make sure that you are always up to date, that you are caught up on all things America's team. We have so many exciting things planned for the season. It's almost time to be excited, which is what June is really all about. So yeah, speaking of June, I hope it's a great June for you. Hey, happy June. Happy 100 days away. The Dallas Cowboys season begins in 100 days. That is very exciting stuff. So yeah, that about does it for today. So do me a favor and have the best day of all time. Like, I'm talking, just have the best day ever. You know why? Because you deserve it. We'll see you next time.